You can go ahead. Okay. Are we going to be able to see everybody? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our May 13th Historic District Commission virtual meeting. We are here today with the staff members and our chairman, and everyone else is joining us via WebEx. Hi.
There they are.
There's everybody. Good to see everybody. And then you should also know that this is being live streamed on YouTube, so anyone can watch, and we will have a recording of our meeting. We also have Candy here, who is taking meeting minutes for our consent agenda items, and I'm going to turn it over to Jim, who has a revised chair speech on how to participate. So Jim, take it away.
Thank you, Chris. The Charlotte Historic District Commission welcomes you to the May 13th virtual business meeting. I'm Jim Hayden, chairperson. With me today are Kim Parati, Jessica Heineman, Michelle Bonaparte, PJ Henningsen, Jim Jordan, Crystal Lineberger, Chris Marin, John Ferris, Damon Rumsch, Jill Walker, and Chris Barth. Because the Commission is a quasi-judicial body, no public hearings will be held during today's virtual meeting. The meeting agenda includes consent items that require only a confirmation by the vote of the Commission. During the meeting, I will ask if any members of the public wish to speak on a consent agenda item, if any member of the public requests to speak, or if a commissioner asks for the project to be placed on a regular item agenda for a full hearing, then the case will be removed and moved to the next available space at an HDC meeting. Today's meeting will be moderated by HDC staff and the chair. The process for consent agenda items includes a brief summary of the project by HDC staff. The chair will ask if any member of the public wishes to speak on the consent agenda item. The chair will do a round robin and ask if each commissioner individually if they have questions for staff or wish for the project to undergo a full hearing. The commission will either vote to affirm the consent agenda item or to vote to move the case to a future regular item agenda. Any commissioner wishing to request the floor on a meeting topic, please use the raise your hand button. We may need to do one of these for our regular meetings in the future, by the way. Staff will note commissioners wishing to speak and will advise the chair. Please do not speak unless recognized by the chair or by staff. Everyone participating in today's virtual meeting, we will ask the following guidelines be followed. Mute your audio when you are not speaking. Use only one source of audio, either your computer or your phone. Do not put your phone on hold. Make sure you are in a quiet area. Please turn off or silence all electronic devices and do not speak over the person talking or you will be asked to leave the meeting. Use the raise your hand tool. Please be mindful that our court reporter Candy is here. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that all the staff is here. Christy Harp, Cindy Kuchanik, Candace Lady, Andrea Leslie Fite, Linda Keach, and Candy Thomas, our Atkins court reporter. Our Atkins Court reporter, who is responsible for making an accurate, complete recording of these proceedings. The reporter must be able to hear and understand everyone present, must state their names before they speak clearly, loudly, and one at a time. The reporter will interrupt only when absolutely necessary to get clarification on what was just said or to alert speakers they're having difficulty in understanding. Any questions? If not, let's get underway.
Presentation? Okay.
It's loading.
The presentation is loading. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We know this is the new format, and there might be a couple of delays, so here we go. Okay, perfect. If you want to, is she going to turn over control to me, or?
She will click next slide, she will.
Okay. Ask her if I can click through on this first one. Kind of like Dave does.
Okay. Christy, can you see and hear me?
Yes, hi, sir.
Hey there, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great, thank you.
Thanks for joining
Okay.
us. Do you have a
Thanks
question?
for doing this. This is a historic district meeting, huh?
For the history books, for sure.
That's right.
Up, down, okay. Maybe have her hit next slide. Wendy, would you hit the next slide while we're figuring this out and we'll start? Thank you. I think you might.
Hey, Tom, how can I see everybody at once? Is that possible?
It is not working.
Well, there they are.
Now try it.
Okay. Nope.
Nope, not working. Okay, can you go ahead and click to the,
This one?
Quick 2 slides ahead.
can you go ahead and click 2 slides ahead?
Okay. Got it.
I don't even see you moving it. I think you gotta take that control.
This one here. Where am I? I got it. Okay. Great.
Oh, it says we're hosting.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Nope.
Okay, now try to click 2 slides ahead. Can you do it where she's driving? This is why I'm trying not to.
Hello?
Wendy, we can hear you.
Hi, Wendy.
Okay, now I can hear you, but they can't.
I feel like I'm getting ready to watch the Brady Bunch.
You're part of it.
No, they're not moving. Okay, so. Make sure. Okay, stay with it. Okay. So she's clicking through, nothing's moving, but she doesn't have control anymore. So Wendy's on a completely different slide.
you can use the page down and page up button.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect.
If you have any issues with it not going, all you have to do is just click the screen
Okay.
and then move your mouse off.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
David, everybody. Okay, we're going to start with the consent agenda. And the first item is 1926 Ewing Avenue. The project are very small window changes on an existing bump out on the left elevation. There are 4 small windows, one located on the front, 2 on the side, 1 on the rear. The reason why this can't be staff approved is because of the visibility of the front window changes. The project requires just a consent agenda and the commission to look at it. Staff has reviewed the project, and here are some pictures showing the windows in question. You can see that they're small casement windows now. They're actually enlarging the windows to make them fit better with the architecture of the house and the current windows in the house, and you can see that on the drawings. So does anyone have any questions? I guess, Jim, do you want to do a round robin and see if anyone has questions about the project?
Yes, and is there, if there's anyone in the public who wishes to
Oh, yes, thank you.
speak about this or have this placed on a regular agenda, you need to let us know now. But
raising their hand?
commissioners, anybody have any issues with this? Nobody?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, someone? Damon Roach.
Damon?
Damon, we can't hear you. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
perfect.
Okay, good. Thank you. The elevations and the pictures didn't look like they were enlarging the windows. Would you show the front elevation again? I couldn't see the.
It's just on the left bump out. You see the small square window?
Oh, I do see it. I'm
Yep.
sorry. I was looking at.
That's
yeah.
okay. Yep.
So that window is going to match the existing windows exactly, the ones on the front elevation that are there now?
They're going to be proportional match. They're going to be smaller than the ones on the front elevation, but the light pattern and the size of the lights are going to proportionally match.
Okay, so the individual lights pattern is going to be relational, very similar to the relational look of the existing windows on the front of the elevation. And it's going to be a case. I got it. I have I'm good with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we need to?
PJ Henningsen?
TJ?
Yeah, hey, question. I think Damon hit it, though. I just wanted to confirm that the new windows are casement versus double hungs on the original house, and they're not the same size as the original double hungs. They're proportionally smaller.
Correct.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim?
My question was answered.
Thank you.
Does anyone wish to remove this as a consent agenda item?
Do we have anybody who wants to have this moved to a full agenda item, or are we good to go with a consent agenda item?
Okay, we're good to go.
We're good to go. So do we need to go ahead and take a motion and do it now?
Yes.
Yeah, I will entertain a motion for approval. Come on, people, somebody raise your hand.
If,
Yes, you have a second.
okay, we have someone raise their hand. Who raised their hand?
From Jessica Hinton, James Jordan, and David Ruth.
Okay, Jessica Hinman, you're up. Make a motion, please.
Approve this project as drawn as a consent agenda item.
And you had Jim Jordan second?
Yes, and Jim Jordan
Jim Jordan
seconded.
seconded.
Jim, can you confirm, please?
Yep, I second.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Should we have everyone unmute and say aye?
So if you all can mute and unmute to make a motion and to second the motion, as well as to say aye. So it will be helpful. So just go ahead and unmute yourselves to make the motion, someone to unmute themselves to second the motion, and then everyone unmute themselves to say aye. That would be really, really helpful. Thank you.
Damon, aye.
Jessica, I.
Kit, I.
Krista, aye.
PJ, aye.
Chris Barth, aye.
Chris Mern, aye.
Jim, aye.
John? John?
John Ferris, aye.
Okay.
Jim said aye.
Jill?
Jill, are you still on the call? Nichelle?
Yes, I said aye.
Thank you.
There. Okay.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The next agenda item is 629 Berkeley Avenue. They are changing an existing screen porch on the, if you're facing the house, it's on the right elevation. And they also have a rear entry stair that is already enclosed that they're looking to upgrade to match the enclosure of the screen porch. And the reason why it's before the commission is due to the location and visibility of the project. Otherwise, it would be eligible for staff review. Staff reviewed the project. There are a couple of things that staff would like to work with the applicant on, including maybe increasing the size of the windows so it's a little glassier like a sunroom. But otherwise, staff is recommending this as a consent agenda item. If there are anyone from the public or a commissioner that would like to speak, please let us know. And Jim?
Yes. If anybody wants to have this item removed from the consent agenda item and placed on a regular agenda, would like to hear it now. If not, any additional comments or questions about this from the commissioners?
Jim?
Yes.
Hey, this is John Ferris. I need to recuse from this project. I did discuss this with the owner.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you, John. We forgot that.
Let the record show Commissioner Ferris has recused on this agenda item. Jessica?
Christy, this is Damon. Would you show the point out with the picture on the screen of the elevation they're changing from the street, and just point out what that change is?
Sure. So, if we look at the map, right here is a side porch that is currently enclosed with a screen, and they're looking to make it more of a 3-season, 4-season room. The other change that they're looking to make is way back here. It's at the left rear. It's an entry. It's already enclosed. And you can see it right here. And it's already kind of enclosed, and they're looking to upgrade it. It's right there. It's right here.
And the picture you showed us for the change is the one with the first one you showed. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. So the change is right here. Do you see where my mouse is?
No, I see. I'm on the existing picture of the left screen porch in the rear.
Are you on A203?
A203, I am.
Okay. Which picture are you looking at? Top, bottom left?
Oh no, I understand the existing situation.
Okay.
So was there a photograph of what the new one's going to look like, or a doctored photograph?
Yeah, so there are elevations. So A201 has the elevations.
Okay, I see them.
Christy, can you go to that model image?
The model image, yes, Jessica.
And wait, before you go,
Okay.
so are you talking about changing the windows from this drawing to make them more glass and take the panel out from underneath the window? Is that what you were
No,
talking about?
just above. This panel, the panel below, this application very closely matches 2015 Dilworth East that the commission most recently approved.
Okay.
With the layout, with the panel and windows. And so that's why staff thought maybe it could be a consent agenda item. But if there's further discussion or questions, it's always your option to remove it from consent agenda.
Understood. So, so what's in this front elevation on the top left is actually what they're proposing and what you're approving. There's no change from that.
Correct. This is what they're proposing.
I know the one on the left. This is probably staff approvable. I just want to give you some input on the one on the left. The bottom panel looks a little large in proportion to the window
Yes.
given to the other.
Okay.
So that's my only feedback, and it
Okay.
probably could be dealt on the staff level.
Okay. And you're talking about on the left, the door entry, that's the single window that you see.
That's correct. The
Okay.
one on, yes.
Great. Thank you, Damon.
Christy, I have a couple of questions. This is Jessica.
Hi, Jessica. Go ahead.
So, sorry, Jim, I tried to raise my hand earlier, but I think we're all getting used
Yeah,
to this
well, no,
format.
I was just
For
about
me,
to call
this
you.
is, yeah. For me, this is like almost a consent agenda item, and I think it could be a consent agenda item, but I think it needs a little bit more detailing or attention to the details in order to be one. Christy, can you go to the existing photos?
Sure.
If I'm looking at, and I know you guys can't see my cursor, but if I'm looking at the photos of the existing screen porch top right photo,
Okay.
the columns themselves have a cap and a base
Uh-huh.
that hasn't translated to the aesthetic of the enclosed porch. And the screens, the vertical elements are, they don't dominate the porch. They're so slender. So there's also a beam. You can't quite see it in the flattened out 2D elevation because of the nature of the eave. And the gable end has a lap siding detail on the existing photos. The can you go down to the proposed elevations now?
Yes.
And
8201.
could you zoom in? Yeah, could you zoom in on the right elevation? I'll use that.
Maybe.
If you can't, that's okay. I think I can articulate what it is that I want to say.
Do you have a room?
So I think in the past when we've allowed these screen porch enclosures, which I think there's
you go.
some
There
really
you
beautiful
go.
examples of in the neighborhood. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you see the screen with
Okay.
it zoomed?
No,
Just-
but that's okay.
If there's a
Yes.
there's a zoom button on the left side, at least on my screen on the left, that allows you to
Oh.
zoom on your computer.
Thank you. Okay, so if you guys have any interest in zooming, you can do that. So what I'm looking at is when we have, and Christy, I think you were alluding to this, when we've allowed these porch enclosures in the past, we've usually conceived of them as the glazing filling the screen porch space. And I think in this one, where these vertical elements are really dominant and we've lost a continuous beam, and the windows are trimmed inside the panels and sills and vertical elements, sort of like a double picture frame trim. We've lost that quality of it being a sunroom. On this particularly on the right elevation, these windows strike me as being a very close match to the front 8/8 windows. And so I don't think the 6/6 is working in the light division. I think the application would have to make the case for a change in the gable end detailing And I'm not exactly sure how the return or the horizontal return on the gable end detailing is working, whether that's a pent eave or whether it's flat. The windowsills seem discontinuous, and when we've seen these before, those horizontal elements of the windowsills and the beam have not been discontinuous because it's trying to create that quality that the open porch has been filled.
Okay.
What else is on my list here? I've got a couple others on my list here. The door and the window heads, they don't align with the existing window heads, which I think is fine. I think it would be complicated to do that. And they don't align with the bottom of the beam, which I think is fine. It'd be complicated to do that. But I think that the door and the window heads should align, whether that's an adjustment in the head height or an adjustment in the door height. And there needs to be a visible continuous beam for it to appear as an enclosed porch converted to a sunroom. The left elevation, when I zoom in, there's just a lot of line work that's not lining up with things.
Okay.
That basically covers it. There's some other notes, but I think that if the applicant worked with staff on these details, this could potentially be a consent agenda item. But for me, it's not quite there yet.
So what I would ask is that if you would like to remove it from the consent agenda and place it on a full agenda, you either make that motion or you make a motion that is incredibly detailed with what staff is to work out. And I took notes, but I would need you to include that in your motion.
There's some other commissioners who want to speak. Should I let them speak first, or should I just go for the motion?
I think.
Yeah, we'll let Chris Barth.
Jessica pretty much covered it. I mean, my main concern was the discontinuous beams on that right elevation going across. I think, when they typically enclose these porches, they essentially just fill in the opening there. So, and as far as those windows, I think if you make them taller, the light pattern or the light proportion will change. So, I think I'm comfortable with staff reviewing that and being able to determine whether we go 6/6 or 8/8. But Jessica pretty much covered it, so we're good.
This is Damon. I think there's enough, because this is the front of the house, and there's enough ambiguity about what we're kind of specifically saying. I don't think we're giving kind of general feedback.
Okay.
I would like to take this off the consent agenda if that's okay with the rest of the commission.
I agree.
Okay.
All right. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes, if you would just make that a motion, Damon.
I move to remove this from the consent agenda.
Okay.
Damon.
Have a second?
Kim will second.
Kim seconded. Moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion to remove?
Damon, aye.
EJ.
Chris Barth, aye.
Kim, aye.
Jessica, aye.
Jim, I.
Jim, aye.
Chris Mern, I.
Okay,
Okay, is that everybody?
sounds unanimous. Okay,
If y'all have a thought, if y'all want in the future, everyone can just say aye and not say your names. And then if there's someone who wants to vote no, say your name and then no. Will that work for everybody?
Christy,
Yes.
this is Andrea.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
For votes, we need a roll call vote
Okay.
pursuant to the statute. Thank you.
Hey, Andrea, it's Donata. So that's how we run it at council, because if they all say aye, then they're all saying aye. And then if we need abstention or for no, then we can do those, and then it's already counted. So if no one votes no, you know who voted yes.
Because I did it judicial, we're different than council.
So it has to be?
I guess so. If,
Okay.
I would, Andrew's our attorney, I would go with what she says. Yeah. Yes, city attorney.
We can discuss this offline, but for purposes of this right now,
Oh, Andrew works for the attorney's office.
That's cool.
Okay.
Let's just do it.
Is legislative and we work confidential, so we operate like different than city council. Okay. So that's why she's saying that. Yeah.
Next item.
Okay. I don't have control anymore. Okay, the next item is 1701 Merriman Avenue. It is a small rear addition. The only reason it is before you as a consent agenda item is because it is a corner lot and visible from the street. Staff has been working very closely with the applicant and the designer, and there are only a couple things I think that staff would like to continue working with them on, and that is the window sizing on the rear elevation, especially of the window, the small window. Here, I'll show you a picture. The small window, it looks like a half-size window above the paired window on the rear. And we feel that's out of proportion with the rest of the house. And staff would like the go-ahead from the commission to work with the applicant on that. And then any other eave details that may not currently be drawn to match the house. But otherwise, it's a very small, simple rear addition. They're just extending out an existing addition. If you notice on you can see it on the floor plan very, very easily. There is a small rear entryway, and they are just extruding that out and adding a couple of rooms off the back.
Okay. Do we have anyone in public who wishes to have this removed from the consent agenda? Chris Barth, you've got your hand up.
Just a few things. First, commenting on the half window. Because this roof line is so tight here, I don't even think it works. Speaking to the language of the house. And then I'd like to bring up maybe a graphical error, or just how it's represented on the plans. It looks like there are 3 windows back there. Christy, can you go to the plan?
Sure.
So if you go to the plan, I don't know if you can zoom in or not, but either way, the way it's shown in elevation, I think I would, because it's on the back, I don't know that it's a big problem, but I think I'd rather have those windows either mold together or pushed apart in a better way.
Okay.
Other than that, the discrepancy between the plan and the elevation, if the applicant is here to address that.
Okay. Jim Jordan?
Yeah, I was just trying to understand, are we going to be, if we approve it, are we making a motion that we approve it as shown on the drawings, or are we making a motion that we approve based on once the staff is able to get comfortable, and I guess in theory, if the staff isn't able to get the changes, it's no longer approved? Just want to make sure I'm
It depends on how you make your motion, Jim. You can make the motion to approve as drawn, or you can make the motion, if you look at the staff recommendation, it says it directs staff to work with the applicant on the size and location of the windows, and you can add anything else that you'd like to add. So if you want staff to work on with anything, and that's
Perfect,
your
yes.
comfort level with staff working on these items.
Jessica?
I'm comfortable with this staying a consent agenda item myself, the thing that jumped out to me was in the on the house itself, there are a variety of rake and eave and barge tail details, and I would include in any consent agenda motion that staff would work with the homeowner for consistency in the rake, eave, and barge tail details with both the existing house and the historic house.
Okay. PJ?
I'd like on the left elevation, the sliding glass doors, the 3 bays or 3 panels of glass.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like for staff to work with the applicant to have a solution that's a little more historic.
Okay. So would you like a grid pattern that coordinates with the windows on the house, PJ? Is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just to clarify, that was the right side elevation, not the left, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you have it.
Kim, it's mislabeled. It.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the street facing elevation.
Right. Okay.
Yes, correct. Okay.
How do I raise my hand?
You just did.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Sweet. Well, this is Chris Murn. On PJ's note, is there something that we've done before in the past where possibly sliding doors aren't the best, and maybe this is like just kind of dual doors that open out? Because this is a corner lot, and all of this is going to be highly visible for the historic district. So I was wondering if we have anything in our Rolodex of things we've approved where there's a different set of doors than possibly this system.
No, we don't get that specific. I should note there is a fence on this property as well that may hide some of the doors, but of course that is a temporary element, unlike the more permanent addition on the house. If you want more details on windows and doors, then beyond what PJ specified, I would recommend that you take this off the consent and review it fully, unless you can give very specific instructions to staff as to what staff is authorized to approve. And Andrea, if you need to chime in any further, please do so.
This is Damon. I think this one also should come off the consent agenda.
Yeah, it seems to have the same issues, similar issues that we had with the last one.
Christy, this is Andrea, just chiming in. I think the level of discussion that's occurred thus far would justify it being moved to the regular agenda based on what the commissioners have said. Additionally, for simplicity purposes, the motion or the request to remove something to the regular agenda really doesn't require a full vote. It simply just needs to, one commissioner simply can ask that it be removed to the regular agenda. And to Ms. Jackson's point, I think that may simplify what we're needing to do here. But if we do any additional voting, it will need to be by roll call.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.
So,
this is Damon again. I think that I think this should be removed from the consent agenda.
so be it.
Okay. Next application, 412 East Tremont Avenue. This is a rear addition, less than 50% square footage increase. Literally the only thing bringing it to the commission is that it has a small bump out on the right elevation. And staff is not allowed to approve anything that is taller or wider than the existing house. And you will see on the plans on the screen at the back right, the small bump out, which is what is bringing this to the full commission. And you can also see it on this screen as well. Okay.
Do we have anyone in the public wishing to have this item removed? If not, commissioners?
This is Damon. This looks fine to me.
This is John Ferris. I don't see any problems with this project remaining on the consent, being approved on the consent agenda.
This is Jessica. This one looks great to me too.
I agree.
Anybody not agree?
Did we make a motion to approve it?
We can.
Sounds like you did.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this consent agenda item.
Moved by Kim. Do we have a second?
This is Jessica. I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve this consent agenda item. Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next.
Okay.
Can I be heard?
You are being heard.
Okay, great. I'm going to unmute. I wasn't sure. Thanks.
Oh, there we go. Okay. The next application is 1843 Thomas Avenue. This has been before the commission previously. It was approved in February 2018. It was for a major addition, and they never submitted construction drawings. They never went for a permit, so COA wasn't issued. They are back asking to make some of the changes that they requested previously, but not all. They are not doing the addition any longer. They are just wanting reaffirmation of your previous approval for some changes to windows and doors. And some of these are on the front elevation. And you can see them also on the floor plans. Do we have any recusals for this project?
I don't think I've seen
Christie, this is Chris, I believe.
I need to
recuse.
Let Krista?
Yes, I probably should recuse.
Thank you.
Okay. Let the record show Commissioner Lineberger has recused. Okay.
This is Damon. I live at 1801 The Plaza. I don't think I got an email saying I'm within the radius, but I'm pretty close to this address.
Okay. Are you?
I'm okay to stay on the agenda.
Okay.
All right. Do we have anyone in the public wishing to have this item taken off the consent agenda list? Okay, commissioners.
Christy, just for my review, the changes that are being proposed in this application are things that were approved in the past but not done, even though what was approved in the past was a lot more than they're asking for now. But the changes that are in front of us now have been approved at an earlier meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's an excellent summary.
Then I'm okay.
Even necessary.
Then I'm okay with this application.
Hold on, one at a time. Damon, finish. I'm sorry, we missed what you said.
I was okay with this application. I did not ask whether it was under this set of guidelines, but assuming that it is, I'm okay with this application.
It was last heard February 14th, 2018, I believe. I would have to double check that because the guidelines came into effect in November of 2017.
Well, if they are, then I'm okay with that if they are included in it, if you do research.
Chris Barth?
Chris Barth?
If I'm not mistaken, I've walked around this house quite a bit. It's about a block from my house, so I haven't received a letter either notifying me that I'm within 300 feet. But I will say that the plan is rather odd. I think various people have lived in this and turned it into a triplex, duplex, what have you, and there are doors just all over the place. I don't think it works as a single family residence with all those exterior doors. So I think the changes are in good spirit of the design, and I think it works. And if I'm not mistaken, they're not doing any of the addition. It's only the door
Correct.
and window changes that they're proposing move forward. So
Correct.
if we do approve this application, do we just move it forward as is? Or do we indicate that only the doors and windows may move forward?
All that they applied for were the doors and windows. There's no mention of the addition. I just mentioned that to give the commission a full understanding that this project had been previously looked at and what it entailed. It is only what is shown on these plans. That's all that's part of the project.
This is John Ferris. I will move to approve this as a consent agenda item.
This is Damon. I second.
Moved and seconded for approval. Discussion by Jessica?
I don't think that my comment is necessary at this point.
Okay.
I agree with everything that's been said.
Okay. Then all in favor of the motion to approve?
Roll call, please, per Andrea.
Kim, aye.
Damon, aye.
PJ, aye.
Jessica, aye.
Nichelle, aye.
Aye.
John, aye.
Jim, aye.
Damon, aye.
Anyone opposed?
Jill, aye.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, carries unanimously. Thank you.
And the last consent agenda application is for 415 Walnut Avenue. This is also just a reaffirmation. I think there are a couple of minor maybe adjustments, but this application was approved under current guidelines by the commission, and the owner just did not come back with permit drawings within the specified time frame, and they're just looking for a reaffirmation of the project. And the staff memo lays out everything under the staff recommendation and the proposal. It is a one-story rear addition.
Anyone in the public wishing to have this item removed? Commissioners?
This was approved last year, right?
Correct. It was approved.
Yeah.
They just missed the deadline. It was approved in February 2019,
Yeah.
and the COA expired. It's just a reaffirmation.
I am more than fine with reaffirming this.
Chris Barth?
Damon Rumsch, I agree. And I'd move to leave it on the consent agenda.
Okay. Chris lowered his hand.
Okay.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve. Any additional discussion? If not, roll call.
Kim?
Damon, aye. Oh, sorry, Kim.
It's okay. Kim, I.
John Ferris, aye.
Aye.
PJ, aye.
Krista, I.
Chris Barth, aye.
Chris Mern, aye.
Aye. Jill, aye.
Jim, aye. Any opposed? If not, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, kids. That was good work.
Okay, thank you, everybody. That concludes our consent agenda items. We are going to swap the presentations and then talk about a couple of pre-application project reviews. We, basically, it's our workshop offering different proposals or really large complex projects the opportunity to talk to the commission and get high-level feedback. And we have about 15 minutes for each presentation. The first presentation is Jana Hartenstein, who most of you should know as a former commissioner. And it's for an addition to an existing historic garage on a corner lot in Plaza Midwood. And as soon as we get the presentation up, I'm going to turn it over to Jana and let her describe the project. Jana, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, hi, Jana. Okay.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Since we're waiting, everyone smile. I'm going to take a picture. Oh.
Oh.
It's not fair. We can't.
We'll do it later. Okay.
It's not up yet, though, right? Can you see it yet?
We are getting there.
Close.
Okay. Go make sure.
There we go.
All right, Jana, it's up.
Okay.
Can you see it on your screen?
Okay. Yes.
You just tell me when to move on to the next slide.
Okay.
A little dark.
So, Jana Hartenstein with Watson Tate Savory Architects. I don't know if I need to say my address. 1809 Thomas. This is an addition to an existing historic shed on the corner of Thomas and Chestnut. So this is a corner lot. You can go to the next slide. I kind of made a little agenda of what we're looking for, and I can track it. But I think the first part of what we're going to talk about is the additions and why we're asking for them, and then our approach, and then we just have a little discussion on materials and trying to get a little direction, making sure we're on the right page for when we actually come through officially, if we do. Go next slide. So this is the shed. This is actually my neighbor, and he came through, and the shed's not in great condition, but we talked about it a little bit, and this is a 1920 Sanborn map that the shed was existing. It's a little bit over the existing property line, but there's a right-of-way and an alley behind it. It's as far back in the corner of his site as he could ever put it, and I don't even know if you could put it there today if you build it new. Next slide. So the ask is the first A block shows an addition to the garage to actually accommodate a car, and the backup we're looking for here is basically in the HTC guidelines to manage changes to accommodate modern living. He's parking his car on the street. And the second addition B is really what kind of outside of asking for the garage to accommodate a car is to have a little outdoor living, indoor-outdoor space. I will tell you the background on this house, and there's pictures of it if you haven't looked through the presentation yet, but it was originally a duplex, and this owner is probably the second owner since it's been a single-family house, has done a great job of upkeeping the existing house, never added on, and the whole back of the house is bathrooms and bedrooms. It was literally split in half originally. Entrance to the side yard is his only way to the back, but he would like a little bit of space to enjoy his backyard. So on the left, you'll see a diagram from the survey, and on the right is what we looked at real preliminarily. We can show pictures of the shed, but we think the distinctive features of the original historic building are the fact that this was a duplex. There are two existing doors and a post in the middle. Neither of them are large enough to let a car go through. And so what we're proposing is to add on a little bit to allow the car to be in place and then work the garage doors to look like what it looks like now. And I'll show you how we're going to do that in the images upcoming. But ultimately, we're looking at some pivot doors that work for his modern living, but when they're closed, they would look like the building does now. The addition B, we're looking at essentially using the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines on adding on to a historic building. And if you've looked at the presentation, this addition is not historic. We're clearly trying to differentiate old from new. And I'll point out all these guidelines that we put in the presentation, but essentially these are some of the examples from the Secretary of Interior Standards guidelines where there are additions on to older buildings, and there's always a hyphen or a glass link, as they call it, to separate the new from the old. The main difference between these and this client's property is, I don't know if they're on a corner, and then also they're 2 stories, so that glassy link kind of is able to connect in without affecting the roof. You go to the next slide. So this is a house, just for context. It's more of a Tudor top, but a bungalow. And the fence was approved, and Christy can tell you when, but maybe 5 years ago, I believe. And I believe it's 5 feet. And I will tell you as we go through this presentation, we don't have existing house drawings. We haven't measured the existing house. So my coworker put a diagram of the house in the model, but it's probably not at the right height. So I'd like not to compare the height with the existing house. It's lower than the existing house, so we'll fix that if we go through officially. So this is the view of the garage from the street. That's the door open. The doors are painted dark, so you can't see it very well, but there is a post in the middle, and it's 2 separate sets of doors. And so there you go. I mean, other than this, I got pictures of both sides. The longer side to the back is, basically, if I can get a picture, I will. But it's just shingle siding. And you can see it's in pretty poor shape right now. These are views from the alley. And then this is a view from his backyard. It's got a brick base, and the garage doors actually go down lower to a slab that was there. So this is an enlarged plan showing the car, and what we're doing. And I know I don't think I even have to show this, but is making the large door 2-part And if you look at the door at the top of the plan, the handle is what looks like the old post that was there. And that gives him a large enough garage door to pull through. And then the little man door at the bottom would close up, and you'll see in the elevations how it would look like it's a regular door. So this is a view from Chestnut. The idea on the addition would try to keep it as low as possible. That's at 10 feet right now. We would try to lower it as much as possible, but I can't sneak that link in under the eave of the roof and get the structure in the roof. We thought that putting a pitched roof on would make it look like it's all of a sudden just a big garage, and we didn't think that was appropriate either. The idea on one of the things we're going to ask or want to talk about is what windows he can use. He would like to use steel windows. We've used them before in other projects. I think there's one on East Boulevard that was approved a couple years ago in a porch reclamation. But essentially, this is, if you look at the garage doors, that's what they would look like with the new configuration. We propose putting cedar shingles back on and matching the trim. The doors would be cedar, more substantial cedar vertical plank. Right now, whatever the doors are, I don't necessarily believe are original. It's kind of like a beadboard on a stud back up. But anyway, we would like to stay, we might want to go with horizontal, but the idea with vertical is that joint between the two doors on the right, we would work it out so that would be concealed with a board joint. On the right, that mess, if you go back one, we just talk about same thing, just keeping with cedar, but we were talking about the possibility of a rain screen so it was flatter, but we can discuss that when we talk about materials. And one other thing I'll talk about is the sizing, mass, and scale. We're trying to pull lines like the base of the building, the brick, we would pull across under the structure. We'd also take the lines from the garage doors and make mullions, horizontal mullions there. So that's kind of where we're headed with trying to relate to the existing building. Next slide. This is the alley side. We're kind of discussing this, but you'd like skylights in the garage and possibly some small windows added. Right now, this facade has nothing on it. It's actually pretty damaged right now. Ultimately, I think we're going to have to restructure a lot of this building, but all to make it the same. Next slide. This is the side facing the neighbor's property. Again, with the steel windows, he was hoping, you'll probably understand this elevation more after you see the next elevation. I should have put it after that, but it's just kind of this cedar frame, and then the steel windows would turn the corner, and he's hoping that the corner could be steel and match the windows. This is not inside of the road. I guess trying to understand materials on a new interpretation or a new addition to this existing shed. We can talk about that also. Next slide. So this is the side that faces the owner's back of the owner's house. Looking at a glass door system, either steel windows on pivots, or if you go to the next slide, Christy, you can, sorry, this is the cedar. Go to the next slide. Those are the systems we're considering. Steel slenders now. There's a nano wall on the left, or like big Western wood windows in the middle. Something just so he could open up that whole space to the outside of his yard. If you go back one slide, these are just some precedents from buildings that had cedar, and this kind of shows you the cedar shingle, which is what the garage would be, and then the cedar planks, which is what we're thinking the kind of the box form and the addition would be. That's the view from Chestnut right up to the driveway, showing the fence. Like I said, on the right, you'll see that's probably not modeled right. The house height is, we'll get that in correctly. And then the next slide is once you're past the gate, that's with that right-hand garage door open. you'd have a little man door into the indoor-outdoor addition. And the next slide is the alleyway side. Again, wanting some windows and skylights. There was also skylights he wanted on the yard side. Next slide. This isn't behind the fence, but it kind of was wanting to trying to tie into the roof. We would make a small reveal and pull the overhang of the roof over, just to let the box kind of slide as if it's read so it's sliding through the addition. I mean, this side is pretty nondescript. It's just a shingle facade with brick, and we'd actually like to make that shingles, if you look in through the windows, read as if it's still there. In this box, it's just getting attached to it. Next slide. That's a view from Chestnut. He does not have a 6-foot fence because he's on a corner lot. It's almost, I think it's 5. Next lot.
That's
Next
it.
slide. Okay. So that's it. I don't know if you all, I didn't want to dwell too much on the guidelines, but I think we pointed to where the standards talk about, trying to comply with maximum size scale. And we feel like the distinct feature is the doors, but we also would like to accommodate modern living in the mission statement. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Okay. We're about at our time for this. Anybody have any quick comments for Jana?
Yeah.
This is Damon. I live across the street from this house, so I don't know that any of my comments would be valid because I won't be sitting in on this. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Jessica Henry.
Jessica?
Jessica?
Going once?
Sorry, I needed to mute. Sorry, unmute. Sorry, Jana. I'm really excited about this application. I think it's so thoughtfully conceived. I love how you're paying homage to this, vernacular utilitarian structure and sort of retaining the narrative of it for the federal guidelines. I'm comfortable with the extension to accommodate a car. I think that really does fall within the intent of accommodations to modern living, but preserving the narrative of the this utilitarian outbuilding. I really always love the Chinese kintsugi approach to the glass connector. I think it's really such a true interpretation of what we're trying to accomplish. And I think some of the details are just really thoughtfully conceived. I think that basically covers it. Literally, my only question was going to be about the size and proportion of the awning windows on the alley side. Otherwise, I think it's a beautifully conceived project. And I often fall back to, in our mission statement, the fact that we consider each of these districts as the context having unique characteristics. And I feel like as much as I've studied and worked in these districts, Plaza Midwood specifically, I think has qualities about itself as a district that accepts this kind of, I think, thoughtful and interesting approach. That's it for me.
Anybody else?
This is Damon, and of course I couldn't keep my mouth shut. This is a wonderful, as a neighbor, I think this is just wonderful, so I hope I encourage the commission to approve it, or at least to hear it further.
Any other feedback for Jana? She's looking to do a full submittal and come for a full hearing shortly, and it's a very thorough presentation, much more thorough than we normally see in these workshops. I think PJ?
PJ?
Yeah, just a comment. I mean, I love it. So far, I'm hearing all positive feedback for Jana, which I think is great. So if anybody has any negative feedback, or I'm sorry, constructive feedback, please bring it out, because what we all want to avoid is for Jana to go down this path of having a more modern addition on the garage, and when she comes back before us in front of the commission, we don't want to have, no, it's too modern, it's, doesn't have that craftsman feel. We want to avoid that. So again, if you guys have some more constructive feedback for Jana, it'd be much appreciated. But I think it's great. I think it fits in with Plaza.
Thanks, PJ, because that would be helpful now, like you said, to understand if there's what the concerns are.
Somebody
I've got a question. Can you hear me? This is John Ferris.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What is the raise your hand button?
The raise your hand button is located once you start to move your mouse around, there's a little person that pops up. Click on that person, and then on the right hand side you'll see everybody's name. There's a little hand waving on the right hand side at the bottom of that list.
No, I'm not seeing that at all. Okay.
Okay, do you see the list of people?
No.
So, okay, do you see a little person with 3 little lines in the middle of the screen?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Click on that.
Got it.
Okay, now when you see everyone's name, the list of names at the very bottom.
Got it.
Do you see the hand? It says raise hand? Yep.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
I got it. Cool. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think I agree with everything that's been said. I think the differentiation is great here. I think it's an exciting project. I think that's exactly what the guidelines are asking for when they talk about differentiation. And I mean, it really allows the historic structure to step forward. And so I agree with all of the positive feedback that has been given, and would have. I don't know if I'll be voting on this, probably not, but I think it's quite appropriate.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jana.
This is Jessica. Sorry, this is Jessica. I have one more question.
Okay.
Jana, I was going to say in my notes, about the steel windows, because I personally really love steel windows, and I expect that's going to be a challenging part of the discussion ultimately in the full application. And I don't know where the other commissioners will fall on it, but I do fully expect that we will have an intense conversation about it. To my way of thinking, this is the utilitarian secondary structure, and it would potentially be authentic to its history to have a utilitarian style window, such as a steel window. But if you're looking for sort of constructive feedback, I think that may want to be one of the bigger challenges in the full discussion.
Okay. The other question, there was a couple things I just feel a responsibility to the owner to kind of run by real quick if I have a minute. One is the roof material. The house is asphalt shingle. The shed is asphalt shingle. I think ultimately he's probably going to be okay with asphalt shingle, but he did ask if wood shakes would be allowed. Done a little homework, and it seems as though asphalt shingles were kind of introduced in the early 1900s. I mean, we know the shed goes back to 1920. I don't know, how much before that it goes, but is there any thoughts on that? And the other thing was, originally he did want just a window next to his new garage doors, and I felt, we talked about it, and I think this has grown on him, but I'm assuming the two existing garage doors as a distinctive feature, it would be helpful for me to understand. I believe that's something that you guys will not change your mind on. I just want to make sure that you wouldn't accept a window in that front garage next to the one garage door. I think we're pretty comfortable with where it is right now, but.
I'll speak for myself. I think the solution that's been put forth here is something that I would have no trouble supporting. The window, we don't see it, so I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Okay. I mean, that's what I'd expect. I just, I think this whole process, with the condition of the shed has been kind of accepting how, what's got to happen. And I think he actually kind of likes the way the doors work now, but I said I'd ask.
Okay.
What about
And
roof
I feel that
material?
what you've done with these doors is it's such a thoughtful interpretation of the historic narrative. And I don't know that I would want to see any of those three panels interrupted by a window, if I'm being honest.
Okay. Any thought on roof?
I thought your comment about the turn metal roof was really compelling in the application. Does the roof slide through the addition the way that the shingles do?
No, we would probably pull the overhang of the roof out. I don't know that I could make we could try, but I don't know that it would right now. Right now we're not planning.
I don't know that it needs to. It was honestly just a question because I was curious about understanding the detail. I don't know that it needs to at all.
Is there any thought on wood shingles? Like I said, I really think because of budget and everything, it's probably going to go to asphalt, which matches the house roof too and matches what's on it. So we just can't confidently say what was on the original building.
I think for the wood shakes roof, you would have to make some kind of compelling argument for the historical context of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's also garage with a little addition, right? And not the main house. I don't know. My thought would be, it's kind of wood shakes are a traditional material in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There sheds out there, that have metal roofs as an example. I don't know. I think you can make a compelling case as to why wood shake would be appropriate.
Okay, everybody.
Just my 2 cents.
We need to move on.
I don't think you see it anywhere in Charlotte, but it kind of matches the style of the garage with the shingles and everything else. But yeah, I would be cautious to do wood shakes.
Okay. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jana. Next.
Okay. The next application is the Van Landingham Townhomes. We have been talking about this project, I think, since 2015. There's new folks involved, and we have new guidelines. So before they get too far down the design path, they do want to get some feedback from y'all. And there's a site plan, and then I also blew it up so you could kind of see more specifically the details of both portions of the townhomes. At this time, I'm going to turn it over. Rusty, are you on? Rusty Gibbs?
This is Tim Finan. Yes, I'm
Tim,
on, but I'm going to defer to Tim, the
Tim
architect.
Finan's here, and okay, great. Is there anyone else here that you want to introduce with your team?
Yeah, we have Frank Chiley. She's here. Her and Paul. They're both part of the development team that are looking at purchasing the property and doing the development here.
Okay, great. Well, take it away and just tell me when you need me to scroll through.
Sure, that sounds good. I want to go through the site plan kind of here real quick and just kind of touch on how we arose, kind of got to this point. So basically what we're trying to do is we were given, there's a previously approved application to the city that kind of allotted us the areas where we could put the townhomes and how many townhomes we could put on the property that was previously approved through the city of Charlotte. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to be sensitive, of course, to the Van Landingham estate, but also there is going to be a future office building which is not shown on our site plan, kind of in the middle between the Van Landingham estate and our project. And that project in between is going to kind of be more of a modern glass type structure. I don't think it's gotten very far yet, but we're trying to kind of bridge the gap between the Van Lanningham very traditional, historic, a lot of detail, and the kind of very modern office building that's going to be there in the middle. So our style is trying to be, it is going to be traditional, but it's going to be kind of a clean traditional, more of like a Dutch colonial English cottage style. So, but talking about the way we've cited everything is coming off of both either the plaza, which is on the left side, or at the top of Belvedere Avenue, is the townhome blocks will address the streets similar to like a single-family home would address the street with porches and other elements to make it feel like it's part of the neighborhood. So it's not just the end of a building. So that's one of the things we are focusing on. And same with the ends that are kind of towards the pond, which is kind of in the middle, the corner of the L. There's an existing pond there that we are restoring, and it's going to be kind of an outdoor feature so that not only the people that live there can enjoy it, but also the neighborhood can enjoy it as well. And it'll function as well as part of our detention for the property, which it does now. Also, so as you kind of come off of each corner, we block them into 4 buildings. Basically, we try to keep them to the smallest amount of units as possible. There's going to be different size units. The different pieces of the building are going to kind of vary. The roof line's going to vary. There's courtyards in between the buildings. They're trying to activate those spaces for outdoor amenity space. We're trying to keep as many of the existing trees as possible, and be sensitive to the Van Lanningham estate as well. As you move kind of down through the kind of the bottom left piece and come around the part that's on Thurman, there is a hedgerow kind of all the way at the top of the L that there's an existing hedgerow that we're going to try to keep up as much as possible. We'd like to get a little feedback if you guys have any input on that, if it's more about the urban forestry, will tell us about that. But we're, as a way to break the 2 big buildings, we're going to have an access through that to create one for fire purposes, but also one to kind of break up the 2 buildings. And then also kind of create views from Thurmond all the way into the Van Lanningham estate as well. And again, at the top of the L, we're going to try to address the end of the unit towards Belvedere so that it appears as more of a front of a building, not the end of a building. So that's kind of the quick run through of our site plan. We haven't it's not gone into full detail, but this is right now we're trying to figure out how many units we can get on here, what they're going to look like, how we're siting things, and trying to be sensitive to all the different issues. They will have just a note. They will have garages on the front of them towards the street. So both the access from Plaza to Thurman and also along Thurman, there'll be garages there. On Thurman, there are several garages that face as well, but we are going to flip it so that because there's access. If you look at the top of the L, there's going to be there's garages that face. Yeah, thanks for switching. That's on the right side of the presentation piece here. The garages are going to face towards the Van Lanningham estate there. Just the way that it works out, we can't put them on Thurman side because of the hedgerow. But then as you get to the smaller building, the garages are on Thurman side, so it kind of flips, which I think one kind of changes the way that the development looks. It's not a bunch of garages all in a row, but also kind of allows us to make it work. So, we kind of like to get a little bit of feedback on the site plan, but I want to kind of move real quick to the inspiration so you guys can get an idea of what we're going through as far as the design ideas for it. So if you switch to the next slide. So this is kind of one of our inspiration is really like the kind of different gable ends, trying to break up the big box that townhomes can be often sometimes be. So with different gables, different pieces, some ins and outs, kind of different roof lines. We do really like the kind of the white and the dark, this kind of cleaner feel to things. So that could be a mix of both siding, brick, and possibly some stucco if that was appropriate. You know, we kind of want that different, you know, set of materials in, you know, along the whole building there. So this is kind of the mix of materials we like. So you go to the next slide. Here's some examples of some, just you can see more developments where you can kind of see how the different pieces of multiple buildings work together. We really liked how, we really liked the kind of cleaner, like you were talking about, the steel windows, the aluminum windows, or, you know, the metal clad windows. And that's kind of a question we have to you. We'd like the kind of thinner profile ones for our development. So that's something, you know, one of our questions we have to you about the aluminum clad windows. If you move to the next one. This spoke to us for some reason. This project, the dormer design, the way that the roof goes, it might not necessarily be the cedar shake roofs. I don't know if this project will afford that kind of roof, but we liked kind of the feel of those dormers and how the end wall pieces kind of separated it, and how townhomes oftentimes have those kind of separation walls in between. The next slide. This one we also enjoyed because we like the mix of both the white but also some of the cedars mixed in with it. And, you know, we also like some metal roofs. We're not going to do all metal roofs. You know, there'll probably be a majority of the asphalt, but we would like to have some accent roofs with the metal roofs as well. And the next slide. Okay. This, again, was just another one. This is a little more modern than I think we're going to approach it. But, again, we kind of showed the use of a garage, the three-story element. I think our biggest challenge on our project is going to be these are three-story units. And in order for us to get the amount of square footage we need on the site to make the project make sense. So it's going to be, our challenge is going to be trying to break up the three-story building to make it look more like a two-story building, but also kind of having a mix of the contemporary and the traditional styles, kind of the clean traditional look that we're going for. I think that's it. I think that's the last slide.
That's it.
Yep. Okay. So we had a couple questions, unless you guys want to jump in on any of the things I've showed so far.
I'd say go ahead and ask your questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the aluminum clad windows, I know that's been, you know, the metal clad, I know that's kind of changed a little bit in the last few years. You have allowed that in some cases for us to use the aluminum clad, kind of more minimal mullion design. Is that something that would be acceptable here in this case? If anyone can answer that.
This is Jessica. Tim, I think we have accepted aluminum-clad wood with thinner stiles and rails, like the Colby profiles that are thinner on other projects. Yeah. Isn't that true, Christy?
Yes, aluminum clad on new construction, it's not as much the material, but the design.
Okay.
This is Damon. The metal that you're talking about is like the old 50s metal windows with very, very thin mullions, so you have a lot of glass. Is that right? It's not necessarily a sash like we're usually seeing in the neighborhood.
Correct. Yeah, they wouldn't be the steel leaded glass because that doesn't meet energy code and stuff for now. But it'd be more of like that thin profile. You know, less mullions. We're not going to do big panes of glass, of course, but it'll have, you know, the thinner profile, so you won't have the kind of thick built-up mullions, and it won't be a double-hung kind of situation. Almost more like a larger casements, but not necessarily. You know, we may have some mix of casements in there as well.
So it seems to me that that without seeing a design of the buildings themselves to see how that works with the system, with the building, that it's really hard to comment on that window independent of the design itself. So I would reserve having to say something. I do have some comments, but I'm in general about the site plan, but I'll save them till later.
Okay.
John?
The next, okay. Did someone say something?
John Ferris?
Oh, sorry about that. I forgot to unmute. Yeah, I think that I like the gesture that you've made with the traditional forms and then also the clean lines and the modern. I would not have any issues with metal clad windows in this new construction. I don't know why we would. I mean, we're not preserving historical building, so I don't know why we would have an objection to that in the new construction.
Okay. Yeah, of course, like you said, it's going to be dependent on the design, but it'll
Sure.
make it appropriate, of course. But we just want to make sure we didn't go down the path and think that we were going to get this all in a certain type of material, and then we have to switch to all wood,
Right.
which just changes the cost of things and the longevity of the, a newer build. So,
Agreed.
yeah. Okay. Any more questions, or can I move on to the next question?
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead. Okay. The next fiber siding, I know that's been allowed more recently as well. Is there a specific type that, and maybe I just missed it in the guidelines, but in the past I've heard it being used on, when I've been on past reviews, I've heard it being allowed. And that's something maybe I can just get from staff if there's a specific ones we're allowed to use, like an artisan style party.
Yeah, we do have a list that Christy can give you of the ones we have approved in the past.
There are two. Hardy Artisan is the most prevalent. It has been a special request to use the Nechiha Savannah Smooth, and those have been, because it is a slightly thinner profile, it depends on the design of the building, and it was requested to better match an existing house. So.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. And then staying on materials, the painted brick. I know in often cases when a historic building is not painted, we typically wouldn't present that as being painted, painting unpainted brick. But in this case, the look and feel we're going for is really more about a painted brick, just to look kind of cleaner feel of the design. Is that acceptable? Painted brick? When I say painted, it's probably going to be white-ish, some kind of white.
I'm going to start, and then I'll let commissioners jump in. The commission has not approved that in the past. When that has been requested, it's because of the loss between the mortar and the brick and the loss of texture. There is one house, I believe it's on Berkeley Avenue. It's a new construction that was approved for a different color of brick and a different color mortar, that the brick was already colored, but it wasn't painted. And that's the only exception I can think of that the commission has approved. Any commissioners, how do you feel about that moving forward on new construction?
Chrissy,
I'm sorry, I'll just say quickly that I'm not really comfortable with it. I think that we've had a challenge with painted brick in more districts, and I know this is new construction, but it would be nice not to confuse our residents any further than we already have with the painted brick in the historic districts.
Got you. So basically, because if we go and get it all painted, the next person who wants to paint their old house, they'll go, why is that not allowed? Because you guys allow them to do it. Yeah, but that's a precedent, I think.
Yeah.
I would say
But
from the perspective of precedent as well, the last multifamily project that got approved through this commission with, was that maybe, 2 or 3 years ago, Christy? West Boulevard?
2 years ago, yes.
Requested painted brick, and that was not approved by the commission.
Okay. And tagging on that, is white brick allowed? White brick and white mortar? Not painted, but just integral white brick.
They have not approved that in the past. That would be a case that you would have to make to the commission.
Okay.
And again, it comes down to a historical color palette for that brick.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good.
Anything else?
All right. I got a couple more questions. There is an existing carriage house that is located about midway down. If you go back to the site plan, it's about where the kind of road between the two buildings on the top of the L. It has, as part of the 2015 approval through the City of Charlotte, they have allowed us to remove that carriage house. We are keeping it's called an orangery. It's a small building down at the bottom of the L. That is staying in place. But we are going to propose to demolish the carriage house that's basically kind of falling apart to kind of make way for this development. It's just kind of there's no way to really integrate it well with this design. And I wonder, as far as from a historic point of view, since it's been approved to the City of Charlotte for that, where does that stand with HTC?
Tim, I believe we have an existing COA for that. I'll have to look in our records, but Billy Madelon came and asked for approval to demolish outbuildings. I'm not sure the carriage house is original. I'm not sure. We can check our records, and if it's expired, you would just need to make that part of your request. But I think there's an existing COA on that.
Okay, I didn't know there was a COA. I thought it was just a City of Charlotte approval. So, okay, I think when the townhomes were approved, I understand that was when they were approved to be there. That was it was approved by someone. But okay, sounds good. My last question, the only thing I had was it was about the hedgerow. I posed that question when we were talking about the site plan. Is that something that would be addressed by HDC, the hedgerow that occurs along Thurman? It's kind of hard to see in the plan, but it's along the larger block of townhomes on the back side of that. We want to keep that hedgerow along that, but we want to cut it back where the drive goes through from Thurman to Van Lenningham.
While you're getting the picture up, that hedge is almost like a wall. It's very thick and it's very tall. Here again, I think that needs to be part of the presentation, because seeing that, talking about that independent of what the project looks like is really kind of hard to address.
Yeah. And what we're saying is we're basically going to cut off 20 feet of it on the end of it, but the majority of it, that 95% of it, will remain, because we want it for the tenants as well that are going to be in there. It's a nice feature. So.
Well, my point of it, I think, this will be my last comment about that. My point of it is that is so large that it's almost like a wall, which a privacy fence would only be able to be 6 feet, and it wouldn't be at the front. So without seeing it as an element of the architecture, if it acts as a fence, it's probably not appropriate for the front, even though it is vegetation.
Yeah, it would be part of the back of the property. So that's part of the back of that building.
Which faces
along there?
That? Sorry.
Yeah, so the front of those buildings, of the 7 there, is actually facing towards Van Lanningham, but the back of the units would be facing Thurman, and then it switches when you go to the 5 at the bottom.
Right, and that brings up the question about the site for me, but we're very concerned with streetscape, and so for us, this is not, the back of the building shouldn't be facing the street. So, but that's going to come up in comments later.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest question is if this, I think part of the original request was to keep that hedgerow. So with that, if we kept the hedgerow, then there would be no way to face the building to the street. But again, we can address that, I guess, during our official submittal. So. You say something, David? Damon, I saw you talking, but it looks like you were talking to someone else.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were addressing something to me. I was waiting for the. Are we talking about we talking about the front of the buildings and the way it's sited?
Yeah, the reason why we fronted it, we switched it is mainly because it was requested to keep that hedgerow. So it would be no way to, without getting rid of the hedgerow, there'd be no way to put the front of the building towards Thurman. We'd actually prefer probably to put it up towards the front of Thurman.
Okay, so this is okay. There are several things about this project that are very alien to this district. The fact that it's 3 stories, the fact that there are garage spaces facing the street, the fact that there's very little public to private space, like a front porch or something like that, and there's really no definition of a front door, at least that I've seen. But I've not seen your front elevations there, I don't think. So I think at this point, what you're presenting, I mean, I love the fact that you're bringing some of the traffic, some of the parking to the back, but I cannot imagine that this would be an appropriate design for our historic district. Those 3 reasons.
The 3 reasons that?
The 3 reasons, well, actually there are 4. It's the 3-story element, the garage facing the front of the street, the public-private piece that's missing, and a definition of a front door.
Okay.
And that's not even talking about, the way it relates to it, the size of massing. I mean, those are just how it addresses the street.
Yeah. Do you think that 3-story piece is really gonna be a challenge?
It's going to depend on your architecture. My guess is you could maybe make it a 2.5-story, or there are ways to kind of manipulate that it wouldn't read as tall as a 3-story, and yet you'd be able to get it out of it. So I think there are ways to get around that. The more difficult is the garages and the way it addresses the front facade. For me.
Okay. This is good. This is good info. Okay.
Anything else?
I think that's all I had. Unless my client's having anything to add. I'm Charlie. Rusty. Did you have anything else?
This is Rusty. I don't have anything to add.
Okay. All right.
Any other last minute questions or comments from the commission?
Tim, this is Jessica. I have a question. I wondered if you could talk to us about the choice of the location for the cut through from Thurman to the Van Landingham property and the sight lines there.
Sure. The biggest choice was the restriction of that hedgerow. Part of that conditional plan from City of Charlotte was that we had to keep that hedgerow. So we tried to minimize how much we had to. Also, kind of bookending the 2 5-unit buildings so that they kind of create 2 masses around the pond. That was kind of an idea too. So there's some symmetry there between the 2. And then other than that, the amount of units you see on here is the allowed amount of units. We're allowed to have 22 total units on the site. So we were trying to get that many on there.
Okay. My only feedback, it's going to be consistent with Damon's. The most challenging aspects of this are going to be the 3 stories. I think you'll have better luck with 2.5, and given the context. And the most recent multifamily of this scale that this commission has approved, I do think that in subsequent applications, that applicant, and I'm going to have Christy correct me correct me on this, the applicant did modify the end units to be lower, which changed their site plan a bit because they accommodated that by making them just different units that were wider, I think.
Gotcha.
And the garages facing the street is going to be a particular challenge for this commission, but I will say the cut through between the plaza and Nassau really reads to me as a private drive. So I don't know, I'm not going to speak for any other commissioners, but I don't know that that is going to be as much of an issue for me on that cut through, provided it's screened from Nassau and the plaza, as it might be on Thurmond and whatever is taking place directly across the street from them on Thurmond.
Okay. Yeah, I believe a lot of the on Thurmond is actually garages for some of the homes that are over there, with a lot of those properties along there have garages facing that. But and that's why we try to minimize that as many. I think we only have about 5 garages, the 5 block building. So that's why we had that hedge to kind of block the building as well. So it's good feedback. Yeah.
Tim, I had one more comment. I find your precedent images really compelling. I really love them. I would say that the images on pages 2 and 3 feel a little bit more comfortable to me in the context of Plaza Midwood. And the images on pages 4 and 5, much as I am very much in love with them for all of the reasons that you stated, they to me speak of a much colder climate than we really have here in the South for a variety of reasons. The pitch of the roofs, the thickness of the heavy walls. And I think the way you articulated those images, I actually have less concern than I did when I studied the presentation before, because I think what you were picking up on is not the things that speak to me of colder climates. But if I were to provide constructive feedback on it, I would say that I feel like the images on 2 and 3 really speak to the patterns of construction in this climate that we see in the historic districts, the roof pitches, the height, the breakup of the facades, the rhythm of solid and void, and all of that. I think they're really beautiful contemporary images that pick up on the massing, scale, size, and qualities that our guidelines speak to.
Okay, that's great. Good. Yeah, and you hit it on the head too about the ones on the end were more about materiality and kind of elements of design, but not necessarily the buildings themselves. So.
Thank you. Your explanation of it, I thought was really helpful.
Okay, appreciate that.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
The only 2 bits of business we need to finish, we do have probably an extra 5 or 10 minutes because we got started late, is the consideration of the vacant seat and approving the March meeting minutes. The other staff updates, staff can follow up with you via email. So John Ferris has elected, as you know, not to seek a second term, and he currently holds the business owner of Dilworth seat. And we have a list of applicants who are eligible. And as I mentioned, I believe at our March meeting, given the difficulty in finding business owners in Dilworth, staff is suggesting that, like we did last year with moving Jill to Tamara's Dilworth seat, we move Jessica, since she is an architect living in Dilworth, to the Dilworth business owner seat. And then that opens up our applicant pool much greater so that we can find a good fit for the commission. And one of the things that we have talked about previously repeatedly is lacking a contractor support. We have Damon, who is fantastic and super helpful, but I know even Damon feels, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Damon, that he would like another contractor on the board. Okay, thanks. So that's why the recommendation is what it is. The list of applicants is on the screen. We have 5. They have all applied for the at-large position, so that's yet another reason why staff is suggesting moving Jessica to the business owner of Dilworth seat and then opening up the at-large position so we can move forward. And like City Council did last year, they're looking for a recommendation from the commission. They want to hear from you about what you need and what skills you need on your board. And I will work with Jim to write up a memo to City Council with your recommendations. So that's what we need you to do today, is to have some discussion and put forward some motions on these commission seats.
To me, making the move for Jessica is a no-brainer. And that's a fairly simple motion, I believe, is it not?
It is.
To allow Jessica, yeah, we have it here. Go ahead.
Did you say you needed a motion?
Yeah, we do need a motion.
Hey, this is John Ferris. Should I be voting on any of this or no?
You're still a member of the commission at this point.
I think you can certainly vote.
Yes. This is Jessica. I have a quick question.
I'm honored to have Jessica fulfill the Dilworth business seat.
Jessica?
Christy, can you Christy and Andrea, just so I know, it doesn't matter what the answer is, but I'd like to know, what does this mean for my term?
I don't know the answer.
The dates of my term?
I don't know.
Okay.
The answer is one of two things. Either your term stays the same or your term is extended by 1 year. And that is
That's
good.
right.
And that's
right.
gonna-
Get with the clerk's office to verify that.
Yeah.
But I guess, John, you should definitely be voting.
Yes. So,
okay, thanks. Just let me know later about the term question. It doesn't matter. I would just look.
Yes, that's a great question. And we will find out for you. Do you, I guess I had talked to you offline, but we should officially ask you, are you okay with this incumbent change of status since we are moving you?
Yeah, it doesn't make any difference to me whether it's the at-large city council or the Dilworth owner city council. I mean, I feel like we articulate frequently that there's a lot of Dilworth representation on the Historic District Commission. And so in that regard, it feels good to me to open up the at-large seat.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, would someone like to make that motion, please?
I move that the incumbent Commissioner Jesse Hinben, who holds the at-large seat, be recommended for a change of status to the business owner of Dilworth seat. This is Damon.
Do I hear a second?
Second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion of the motion? If not, roll call.
Damon, aye.
Jill, aye.
Kim, aye.
Jessica, aye.
EJ, aye.
John, aye.
Michelle, aye. Krista, aye.
Any opposed? If not, it's unanimous. Now, for the appointment for the recommendation to council of someone to replace Jessica, you have two names up there. Are those contractors?
Those are contractors. The staff sent the commissioners on May 1st the applications and resumes of everyone who has applied, which is on this page. And it included, personal statements that they've given about their experience. And I hope you have reviewed that. Staff reviewed it. And based on staff review, we believe that Philip Goodwin or Brett Taylor would be the best fit based on their experience and their knowledge of construction and being contractors that work frequently on historic homes and in historic districts would be an asset to the commission.
Can we do as you have done, recommend either of those, or?
I would not recommend both.
One?
I would recommend that the commission have a discussion and choose one, because what city council does is, what they've done in the past is they've just accepted your recommendation and moved on, and rather than open something up for discussion.
Okay.
Christy, can I say something? This is Jessica.
Yes.
Two things, actually. I have worked extensively with both Phil and Brett, and they're both exceptional. I mean, really, really exceptional. Both of them would be a huge asset to this commission. Beyond that, I think in the years that I've served on the commission, I have really particularly appreciated when we've had two contractors on the commission. So I would love, I'm going to be comfortable with whatever decision the commission makes between these two. They're both such great candidates. But I would love for us to maybe have a longer term plan, because it would be wonderful if they could both be a part of this commission at some point in time.
Can I ask, do you know, it would be really good as an at-large person if the person did not live in our historic districts, so there wouldn't be conflicts in terms of what they're doing? Not necessarily live, but work. Do you have any background on either of the two other than what we have on our application?
I don't have their applications in front of me, but if you look at their applications, it provides their home address. And it also provides
I'm not worried about where they live. It's just the conflict of working in the neighborhoods, because that just comes in front of us so often.
Philip Goodwin cites working in Myers Park Hermitage Court as one of the reasons why he's qualified to be on the board.
So I can share Jim Jordan. The reason he cites Hermitage Court is because he worked on Jim Jordan's house. And Jim Jordan, your fellow commissioner, is the person who asked Philip to apply. I don't know if Jim is still on the call, but Jim has a personal relationship with Philip and encouraged his application.
Yeah,
This is Jessica. I would defer to Jim first, but I would love to weigh in on that. I'll defer to Jim first.
Yeah, I think if you check out their websites, they both have pretty extensive, past projects, but it definitely looks, aren't Damon, that Phil has worked outside of the district exclusively. You might have some upfits, but if you just look at the modernism that he has in his house and his material selections, I think it translates. But to your point, Phil, I think, would be a better candidate if we're looking for somebody that doesn't work with a conflict of interest as much.
As a counterpoint to that, I would say, knowing both of them, they're extremely specialized, and I would say Rhett operates mostly in Myers Park and outside of the districts, although he has all of the expertise to work in the districts and has done some projects in them. But, somebody like Dominic has worked far more extensively in the districts than either of these candidates. And I don't know, did we have any issue of conflict when in the years Dominic served?
They just come up, and there's just a sensitivity, especially now. So I don't know either of these builders, and that's just some input for discussion. I don't really have a preference.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important that whoever joins the board has some extensive knowledge of our districts, and so probably has worked in the district. Just because we talk about the distinct characteristics of our neighborhoods, and it's nice for people a board member coming on to know what that is, I think.
We have to make a recommendation today, or can we do a WebEx interview with them next week, next month?
The recommendation was, the deadline to apply was the 10th. The recommendation, I believe, needs to go to council by the end of the month. I will check on the deadlines. They have been a little bit in flux because of the current situation. It's up to y'all what you want to do. I would.
Let's go ahead.
Go ahead, Damon.
I suggest that we go ahead, and I don't think we're going to get that much more information. I mean, what we're talking about more is philosophical as opposed to specific to the builder. So if the insensitivity about working in the neighborhoods is not an issue, then I don't know we're going to get more information than unless you. What do you think, BJ? Do you think you need more information to make a decision?
No, I mean, I just, when I look at the applications, it was kind kind of light in terms of why, background, Phil had a lot more, he just had a lot more information. I mean, I don't want to punt, and we don't need to punt to make a decision. I mean, they're both qualified, they're both builders, they both have some experience, some more than the others in the historic districts.
I completely agree with you, PJ, and I think that Phil's application speaks volumes about his readiness to serve on the board and his commitment to doing so. And I know that we've had some complaints from people in the districts about a perceived conflict of interest. I actually think Commissioner Fair's response was spot on. I think that's, you can take it any way. You can look at it in a number of ways, different ways, but I think that adds to someone's ability to serve on the board.
I'm okay with, I'm fine with the one that PJ just recommended and you recommend.
Somebody make a motion.
I'll make a motion to nominate, is that it? Phil Goodwin to fill the at-large seat on the board. Left vacant by Commissioner Heineman.
Perfect.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to recommend Phil Goodwin. Any additional discussion? If not, roll call.
PJ, aye.
John, aye.
Kim, aye.
Damon, aye.
Michelle, aye. Krista, aye.
Jessica, aye.
Jill, aye.
Chris Barth, aye.
Jim, aye. 11. It's good. Unanimous.
Okay, wonderful.
Minutes.
What? Look at the time.
Minutes.
That's it. We do this, we're done. I might give one plug for Preservation Month, but
I would just like to say something in support of my own damn self. In the middle of this whole entire meeting, I drove my husband to Mercy Hospital for hip surgery and came back and stayed in the meeting.
Okay, you're officially nominated as a chief technology person.
thanks, Jill.
How's Jill?
How's your husband doing? Did you get a report?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. Cool.
Wow.
Jill, let's not declare victory yet. Let's make sure they operate on the correct hip first. And then,
That's not even funny.
Okay, minutes. Anybody got any issues? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to
Krista.
approve the minutes as written. All in favor?
Damon, aye.
PJ, aye.
Jessica, aye.
Kim, aye.
John, aye.
Yep.
Krista, aye.
Jim, aye.
Jim, aye.
Barth, aye.
Minutes approved.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you being on this call. Quick plug for the city's Instagram page and Facebook. This is Preservation Month in May, and Cindy has been putting together great overviews on the architectural styles and building types. And so just follow along and like them if you will. I will send a follow-up email about the design guidelines and where we're at with that, and the fact that we are working on the contract to finish up the rest of the phases. So that's exciting. Anything else for the good of the order?
In my humble opinion, this was a complete success.
Thanks,
UT
TJ.
WebEx. This is great. This is great.
We are going to try.
Good job, Wendy.
We are
Yeah,
going to.
great job, Wendy.
We are going to try and hold an in-person meeting in June. Emphasis on try. If we can get it down with the socially distancing in room 267. So just FYI, more information to come. And Jim, if you would close out our meeting.
Yes. we've reached the end of our agenda. Is there any other further business we wish to discuss? If not, this meeting is adjourned at 12:15. Thank you. Good job, folks.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.